If you've ever loved someone so much that you lost yourself, this is for you. I'm Isla Bennett. For a long time, I thought that was enough. Just being someone's person, the woman behind a successful man, the quiet supporter, the fixer, the forgiver. That was my role. Or so I was told. When I first met Ethan Caldwell, I believed I was walking into a love story. He was charming, ambitious. Everyone said he was the kind of man who knew what he wanted, and apparently, what he wanted was me. And when a man like that chooses you, you don't question it. At least, that's what I thought back then. "I'll take care of us, Isla," he'd say. "You just focus on being happy." It sounded like a dream. It felt like a dream. I let him pull me into his world. Lavish events, networking dinners, vacations where I smiled for photos that made our lives look perfect. But behind the scenes, little by little, I stopped making my own choices. Every time I talked about taking on clients or building my own career, Ethan would say, "Why stress yourself out? We don't need the extra income. Just focus on us." It sounded caring, protective, until I realized it was a cage. I became small. My ideas became his. My work became invisible. My needs became inconvenient. "The people I work with are old-fashioned," he'd say. "They won't take you seriously. You don't want to embarrass yourself." So I stayed quiet. I tried to believe he was protecting me, that I was lucky. That's what his mother, Lucinda, kept reminding me. "A Caldwell man providing for you? Don't mess it up, dear." So I didn't. Not when I noticed the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the whispers at family gatherings. "You're imagining things," Ethan would say. "Stop being so dramatic." I wanted to believe him, because believing him meant my entire life hadn't been a mistake. But deep down, I knew. People always assume that when a relationship turns toxic, it happens with a bang. A shouting match, a slammed door, an obvious betrayal. But it doesn't. It's slower. Like a leak under the floorboards, you don't see it until the whole structure's rotten. By the time I realized how bad it was, I wasn't just fighting for respect. I was fighting to remember who I even was. But here's the thing. You can push a woman down. You can belittle her, control her, convince her that she's nothing without you. But the moment she remembers her worth, you're done. For a while, I stayed. I stayed because I was scared, because I thought starting over meant admitting failure. But I wasn't failing. I was learning. I watched how Ethan ran his business. I memorized the names of his clients. I took mental notes at every event. I absorbed everything he didn't want me to understand. And quietly, I started building something of my own. Nothing flashy, nothing that would tip him off. Just small connections, small wins, a foundation. Because if there's one thing a decade in the shadows teaches you, it's patience. People think women like me snap one day. No, we rise. And when we do, it's not loud. It's not chaotic. It's controlled. It's unstoppable. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I don't want pity. I'm telling you because I know there's someone out there right now, feeling stuck, feeling powerless, wondering if she's crazy for believing she deserves more. You're not crazy. And you're not alone. My name is Isla Bennett, and I promise you, the moment you decide you're worth more, the world will have no choice but to notice. They thought they built me into someone they could control. They were wrong. They built their future boss. People always imagine that the hardest part of leaving is the day you walk out, but that's a lie. The hardest part is all the days before. The days when you wake up and tell yourself, it's not that bad. When you swallow your pride because the thought of starting over feels more terrifying than staying stuck. When you keep hoping they'll change just once to prove you weren't foolish for loving them. I kept waiting for that day, and it never came. At first, it was little things. Ethan started scheduling meetings during events that were important to me. My best friend, Cora's art exhibit, he had a client dinner. My cousin's wedding? Last-minute business trip. Every time, he'd say, "You don't want me to jeopardize my deals over a party, do you?" The answer was always no. No, of course not. His work mattered. His reputation mattered. That's what Lucinda reminded me every time I got the nerve to complain. Ethan's building an empire. You want to be the kind of woman who helps, not hinders. So I smiled. I nodded. I stayed home, alone. Then it was my job. When I tried to relaunch my freelance marketing work, Ethan didn't forbid it outright. That would have been too obvious, too easy to call out. Instead, he'd say things like, "Do you really want to deal with client stress? We don't need the money." "I just worry about your health, Isla." "Honestly, your time's more valuable making sure our home runs smoothly." And when I landed a small contract despite that, he forgot to pick me up for my first client meeting, left me standing in the rain for an hour. My phone battery died. I ended up taking an expensive cab home. When I walked in, soaked and shivering, he barely looked up. "See? This is why I said you don't need to work." By year 4, I wasn't just avoiding conflict, I was avoiding myself. I stopped talking to Cora. My world shrank down to Ethan, his family, and the roles they let me play: hostess, trophy, peacekeeper. Lucinda even started coaching me on how to speak at Ethan's fundraisers. "Smile, but not too wide, don't interrupt the men, and wear navy or beige, nothing too bold." I followed every rule. Because when I didn't, the punishments weren't loud, they were cold. A week of silent treatment, passive-aggressive jabs at family dinners, snide comments about how some women don't understand the importance of appearances. "But he never hit you," people might say. No, he didn't have to. By year 6, I noticed something else. Whenever I voiced an opinion Ethan didn't like, he'd twist it into a flaw. "Why are you so sensitive? You're overthinking everything. Stop being insecure, it's not attractive." That's how manipulation works, not through fists, through words that make you doubt your own mind. And still, I stayed. Why? Because I thought love was endurance, because I thought I could fix it, and because deep down I was scared that everyone would say, "We told you so." But something changed the day I found the receipts. Tucked inside one of Ethan's blazer pockets were hotel confirmations. Not one, not two. Dozens. All during those nights he claimed he was working late, and the names attached to the room service charges? Different, repeating. Some I recognized from his networking events. Others I didn't. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I didn't scream or cry. Instead, I closed the closet door, sat on the bed, and I felt nothing. That scared me more than the betrayal. The love was already dead. I just hadn't admitted it. That night, as Ethan slept beside me, I picked up my laptop. For the first time in years, I logged back into my old professional account, emailed 3 former colleagues, quietly reactivated my LinkedIn, and I made a decision. If he could build an empire on my silence, I could build one on my strength. I started taking online courses during the day while he was at work. At first, just marketing refreshers, then management, finance, and, most importantly, real estate investing. When Ethan bragged about closing deals, I took notes, not because I admired him anymore, but because I was studying my future competitors. By year 8, I had my license. Secretly, Lucinda's words about appearances backfired, because while they were busy showing me off at charity balls and golf tournaments, I was networking with people they underestimated: assistants, caterers, junior brokers, people who noticed everything and talked. That's how I found out Ethan's company wasn't as solid as he claimed. He was leveraged up to his ears. His charm was holding things together, but just barely. Year 9, I bought my first property, in my maiden name, quietly, cash. When Lucinda suggested I redecorate the Caldwell vacation home to keep busy, I smiled, all while negotiating my second deal behind the scenes. Year 10 was when the tide turned. I hired a financial advisor, quietly gathered proof of Ethan's hidden accounts and his debts. I also documented his manipulation, every comment, every gaslight, because I wasn't just planning an escape, I was planning a coup, and still, I played my part. I hosted one last lavish Caldwell fundraiser, smiled at the right people, held Ethan's arm just tight enough to hide the tension, because appearances matter until they don't. I always thought the final straw would be something big, a public betrayal, a slap in the face. But no, it was a gift box. On our 10-year anniversary, Ethan threw a lavish party. Not for me, for his image. The Caldwell estate was overflowing with guests, the kind of crowd that only cared about power and perception. Investors, politicians, influencers with fake smiles. Lucinda made sure I wore the right dress. Midnight blue, conservative cut. No jewelry except the bracelet Ethan had given me years ago. Understated elegance, she whispered. Remember, Isla, you represent the Caldwell legacy. That night, Ethan pulled me aside and handed me a small black velvet box. His grin wide, confident, performative. Open it, he said. Inside was a necklace. Gold, delicate, expensive. But hanging from it was a single charm, a miniature house. It's symbolic, Ethan explained. For the home you've made with me. For the sacrifices you've made. The word sacrifice stuck in my throat. This wasn't a token of love. It was a leash, a reminder that my value was tied to the life I built around him. Do you like it? He asked, already turning toward the crowd. I closed the box. It's perfect. Except it wasn't. And the moment I shut that lid, something inside me cracked. The next morning, Lucinda arrived unannounced, as always. We need to discuss the expansion project. Ethan says you'll be meeting with the decorators this week. No, I said simply. Lucinda blinked as if she misheard. Excuse me? I said no. I won't be managing your new project. I'm busy. Busy? Her voice sharpened. Doing what? Polishing that little marketing hobby of yours? I stood taller. Managing my portfolio. Your what? My real estate portfolio, Lucinda. The one I've been building for 4 years. Quietly, efficiently, and quite profitably. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Don't be ridiculous. Everything you have is because of Ethan. No, Lucinda. Everything I have is because I stopped believing people like you. I thought that would be the end of it. But that afternoon, Ethan came home early, his face stormy. Lucinda called me, he said. What the hell are you playing at? I'm not playing, Ethan. I'm preparing. Preparing for what? For the day you try to cut me off. For the day you think you can discard me and I'll have nowhere to go. I would never. Don't lie. I walked to the desk and pulled out a file folder, dropped it in front of him. Inside, property deeds, income statements, investment summaries. You think I've been redecorating vacation homes for fun? I've built assets worth 7 figures. His face paled. That's marital property. No, it's not. Everything is in my maiden name, structured through trusts, legal, airtight. He reached for the papers, but I laid my hand on top of them. I know about the debts, Ethan. The accounts you've hidden. The affairs. His mouth opened. No sound came out. I stayed quiet while you built your empire. Now I'm building mine. You won't survive without me, he spat. Watch me. That night, I packed a single bag. Not because I had to, but because I was ready. As I turned to leave, Ethan grabbed my wrist, not hard, desperate. Isla, please. 10 years ago, that tone would have stopped me. Now? Let go. He didn't, so I leaned in, my voice steady. If you make me call the police, they'll find the financial records I've compiled, and you'll lose more than just me. Slowly, he released me. For the first time in a decade, Ethan Caldwell looked powerless. As I walked out the door, the necklace he'd given me clinked against the keys in my bag. I pulled it out, stared at the tiny house charm, and dropped it into the trash. I built my own home now. 2 weeks later, the Caldwell estate, the same mansion where I'd once felt small, powerless, invisible. Now, it was my stage. Ethan had summoned a family meeting, except this wasn't a family. It was a war council. Lucinda sat rigid at the head of the mahogany dining table, her expression tight, lips pressed so thin they almost disappeared. "This is a misunderstanding, Isla," Ethan began, trying to sound reasonable. "If you'd just sit down, we can discuss the terms like adults." "I'm not here to discuss anything." "Then what the hell are you here for?" Lucinda snapped. "You've embarrassed this family enough." "Embarrassed?" I raised an eyebrow. "Lucinda, you have no idea what embarrassment even means. Yet." I placed my briefcase on the table, clicked it open. Inside were 3 folders. I slid one toward Ethan, one toward Lucinda, and kept the last for myself. "What's this?" Ethan asked. "Your future." "Isla, stop this." "No, you'll want to listen." Folder 1, Financial Records. Over the past 5 years, I've quietly acquired controlling shares in 3 of the Caldwell Group's largest subcontractors: construction, design, marketing. "Impossible," Lucinda hissed. "We would have known." "Really? Your accounting firm didn't notice the silent partners because I used proxies and trusts. All legal, all smart." Ethan's face drained of color. "The Caldwell Group depends on these vendors. Without them, your projects halt. Investors pull out." "You wouldn't dare." "I already did." Folder 2, Debt and Misconduct. Page 1, Ethan's undisclosed debts. Gambling losses, margin calls, loans from private lenders at criminal interest rates. That's fabricated." "Really?" I smiled. Page 2, Evidence of funds diverted from the Caldwell Group's charity arm into offshore accounts. Both of you signed off. Lucinda reached for the file but stopped halfway, her hands trembling. "If I release this to the authorities," I continued, "the charges will include fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion." Folder 3, The Future. "But I'm not here for revenge," I said. "I'm here for resolution." "What the hell does that mean?" "I'm buying the Caldwell estate." Silence. Complete. Deafening. "No," Ethan breathed. "That's not for sale." "Everything is for sale when the alternative is prison." I leaned forward, voice calm but firm. "Here's my offer. I purchased the estate at above market value, enough to cover your debts and keep you out of court. In exchange, you both disappear. No lawsuits, no threats, no contact." "You think you can just erase us?" Lucinda sneered. "No. You erased yourselves the moment you underestimated me." Ethan slumped in his chair. Lucinda's eyes darted toward him, silently begging for a plan. There was none. "I'll give you until the end of the week to sign," I added. "If not, I release all 3 folders publicly: investors, media, law enforcement." Lucinda stood abruptly, knocking her chair back. "You ungrateful little—" "Say it," I interrupted. "One more word and I'll add defamation to the list." She bit her tongue so hard her lip bled. Ethan buried his face in his hands. "You've destroyed us." "No," I said. "I finally saved myself." Just then, soft footsteps echoed in the hallway. Maya entered. No longer the timid child I once knew, but a young woman standing tall. "Mom?" she asked. "Is it done?" "Almost," I smiled. "Are you ready?" She nodded. "I want to stay here, with you." "Maya, don't be ridiculous," Ethan blurted out. "You're coming with us." She shook her head. "No, Dad, you only ever taught me to lie and manipulate. Mom taught me strength." Lucinda gasped as if slapped. Ethan looked like he might collapse. "She's 18, I said softly. "She makes her own choices now." As I gathered the folders, Ethan whispered, "Isla, we could have had everything." "We did, for 10 years, but it was never enough for you." I turned to Lucinda. "And you? You built a kingdom on control and cruelty. It's crumbling now." The final blow came not from me, but from Maya. She pulled the house charm necklace from her pocket, the same one Ethan had given me years ago. "Dad tried to give me this last week," she said, holding it up. "But I don't want it. I want to build my own home, like Mom did." She dropped it into the trash, just like I once had. As we walked out, the staff who had once ignored me lowered their heads respectfully. Even the neighbors outside paused, watching, understanding that the tides had turned. No more shadows. No more silence. I wasn't Ethan's wife, or Lucinda's pawn, or anyone's footnote. I was Isla Carter, a woman who had lost everything and built it back better, stronger, on my own terms. 3 days after the showdown, it was done. I received the final email at precisely 8:02 a.m. Subject: Sale agreement signed. No apology, no desperate plea. Just sterile corporate language attached to a PDF. The Caldwell estate, the same place where I had once been humiliated, dismissed, and treated like a glorified maid, was officially mine. By the time I arrived at the estate with my attorney and the notary, Ethan and Lucinda were already waiting inside the grand sitting room. They looked diminished. Ethan's suit hung off him like it belonged to someone else. His eyes were hollow. Lucinda's carefully polished nails tapped nervously against the mahogany table. She no longer radiated superiority, only fear. "Isla, are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this?" Ethan rasped. His voice cracked mid-sentence. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." The notary slid the papers forward. I picked up the pen without hesitation. As my name flowed across the contract, a weight I'd carried for over a decade lifted off my shoulders. It was finished. When the notary stamped the document, the finality hit the room like a thunderclap. Even Lucinda flinched. Lucinda rose unsteadily to her feet. "We were family once," she whispered. "Families don't destroy each other like you did." Lucinda seemed to search for something else to say, but the words failed her. She grabbed Ethan's arm, and together they walked toward the massive front doors. No staff followed them. No farewells were exchanged. The once mighty Caldwells left through the front entrance not as rulers, but as the defeated. The empire they had built on manipulation and control had crumbled at their feet. As they stepped outside, a small crowd had gathered. Neighbors, staff, even a few former business associates. They watched silently, taking in the sight of Ethan and Lucinda Caldwell, the couple who once dominated the neighborhood, leaving with their heads bowed. Their eyes then turned to me, but not with judgment or scorn, with respect. A woman named Mrs. Fairchild, who lived 3 houses down and had always avoided me at HOA meetings, stepped forward. "Ms. Carter, I just wanted to say congratulations. It's about time someone worthy took over this estate." I offered her a genuine smile. "Thank you." I turned back toward the house. Maya stood at the top of the steps, arms crossed. She wasn't glaring anymore. She wasn't sneering. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but clear. The defiance had melted away. "I heard everything," she murmured. "They finally signed." They didn't sign. They surrendered to their own consequences. Maya swallowed hard. "Mom, I don't want to be like them." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I want to work. I want to learn. I don't want to be someone who expects everything for free." For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a surge of pride. "Then you'll start tomorrow. My real estate advisory firm could use an assistant. I won't let you down. You never have. You just needed to find your own path." That evening, I walked through the back gardens. Once, Lucinda had thrown lavish parties here to showcase her dominance. Now it was quiet, serene. The peonies I'd planted in the spring were in full bloom. Vivid, strong, unapologetically beautiful. Not the artificial blue roses Lucinda used to flaunt. Real flowers, real resilience. Light spilled from the mansion's windows, casting 2 shadows across the patio, mine and Maya's. "Mom, I want to grow into someone strong, like you." "Not just strong, Maya. Wise. Wiser than me." In the distance, I heard neighbors gathered near the gate, whispering about Ethan and Lucinda's downfall. But then I heard something else. "Did you see how she handled it? Isla Carter didn't just fight back. She won. She's the reason this neighborhood won't be ruled by tyrants anymore." I smiled softly and turned to Maya. "This isn't just the end of an old chapter. It's the beginning of a new legacy, for both of us." She nodded, determination replacing the uncertainty in her gaze. And this time, no one will ever take it from us again. It didn't take long before Lucinda tried to crawl back. The day after the papers were signed, a sleek black sedan pulled up outside the estate. For a brief second, I thought it might be Maya's rideshare returning her from the office. Instead, Lucinda stepped out, draped in designer black, a widow without a funeral. Her knock was timid. That was new. "Ms. Carter," she began, voice syrupy sweet. "Isla, I think we should talk." I folded my arms, blocking the doorway. "We've talked enough. Please, I came to apologize." That almost made me laugh. Apologize? After 10 years of degradation, gaslighting, and trying to turn my daughter against me? After leeching off my sacrifices? What could you possibly say now? Lucinda's eyes flickered toward the gate, where a few curious neighbors peered through the slats. Her smile strained. "Let's not air family grievances in public." "You made it public when you treated me like the help in front of them." She took a breath. "Ethan and we may have made mistakes, but surely for Maya's sake, we can find common ground." There it was, the leverage she'd always assumed would work. "Maya has made her choice. She chose integrity, something you and Ethan wouldn't recognize if it smacked you in the face." Lucinda paled. "Don't do this, Isla. We can rebuild. We can be allies." "Your definition of ally is someone you can control. I'm not interested." Before she could respond, Ethan emerged from the passenger side of the sedan. His disheveled appearance suggested things hadn't been easy since their exile. "Isla, let's be reasonable," he started. "I'm done being reasonable. I was reasonable when I cleaned your house. Reasonable when I cared for your child. Reasonable when I watched you strip away my dignity piece by piece. No more." Ethan's jaw clenched. "For Maya, then. We'll drop everything. Lawsuits, disputes, all of it. Let's be a family again. You have the power now. Isn't that what you wanted?" I stepped out fully onto the porch. My voice dropped, cold and clear. "No, Ethan. I never wanted power. I wanted respect. Something neither of you gave until I forced it." "We can start fresh." Lucinda tried again. "Please, for Maya." "Stop using her like a bargaining chip." Ethan's desperation curdled into arrogance, the mask he always wore when things slipped from his control. "You think the neighbors' applause makes you invincible? You're still Isla Carter, the maid who got lucky." "No, Ethan. I'm Isla Carter, the woman who built an empire while you were busy burning bridges." His face twisted. "We'll see how long you last. Power is fleeting." "For tyrants, maybe. Not for leaders." Behind me, Maya appeared at the door, having heard every word. "Dad," she said evenly, "if power is fleeting, then why do you look so terrified without it?" Ethan recoiled. Lucinda covered her mouth as if physically struck. "Leave," I ordered. "Your contracts are void. Your influence is gone. And whatever emotional leverage you think you have, that's over too." Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but Maya cut him off. "If you cared about me, you'd respect my mother's boundaries." Lucinda's shoulders slumped. For a moment, I almost pitied her. But then I remembered the late nights crying in silence, the endless manipulation, the years stolen from me. "One last thing," I said. "If either of you contacts Maya or me again without legal cause, you'll be trespassing. I won't hesitate to press charges." "You wouldn't," Ethan sneered. "Try me." They left, not with defiance, not with parting insults, but with heads bowed in defeat. As their car disappeared down the street, Maya turned to me. "Mom, that was incredible." "No, Maya, that was overdue." That night, as the lights of the Caldwell estate glowed behind us, I received a flood of messages from neighbors, former colleagues, and even a few past rivals. "You stood your ground. You've inspired all of us. You're not just the new owner, you're the leader this community needed." Maya sat beside me in the study. She hesitated before speaking. Mom, if you want, I'd like to formally change my last name to Carter. My throat tightened. You don't have to. I want to. You built this. You stood up for us both. I'm proud to be your daughter. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of release, of triumph. Then let's start this new chapter. Together. The Caldwell name was fading into history. The Carter legacy was just beginning. It took only weeks for the ripple effects of that final confrontation to spread. The Caldwell estate became known not as a symbol of old money and elitist entitlement, but as a beacon of new beginnings. I stood in what had once been Lucinda's prized solarium, now converted into a bright, modern co-working space. On the glass wall, bold new lettering read, Carter Collective, Real Estate Empowerment for Single Moms. At first, it was just a few women. Maria, whose ex had drained her savings and left her drowning in debt. Shay, who'd put her career on hold for a marriage that collapsed the moment her husband got promoted. Even a few younger women fresh out of college, wary of making the same mistakes. I don't have much experience, Maria admitted at our first meeting. Just some clerical work. That's more than enough, I assured her. We'll teach you everything else. I wasn't just teaching real estate. I was teaching strategy, confidence, boundaries, the very tools I wished someone had handed me a decade ago. The women flourished. Maria closed her first property deal in 3 months. Shay spearheaded a local housing initiative for domestic violence survivors. The younger women? They started teaching me about social media marketing, drawing a whole new wave of clients. Soon, the Carter Collective wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. One crisp autumn morning, Maya joined me at the office before heading to work. You've built something incredible, Mom. We've built it, I corrected gently. You were my reason for standing back up. She smiled. The city's been buzzing about the Carter Collective. You've become a role model. If I can help even one woman avoid what I went through, it's worth it. That weekend, the mayor's office invited me to speak at a women's leadership conference. As I stood at the podium, lights warming my face, I glanced down at my speech, but the words felt unnecessary. I looked out at the crowd of faces, hopeful, resilient, powerful. 10 years ago, I began, I was invisible. I let others dictate my worth, my value, my potential. Today, I stand before you as proof that no one, not a spouse, not a family member, not society, gets to define you. Only you get to decide who you'll become. The audience erupted into applause. Not polite, not obligatory. Real, thunderous. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, Maya squeezed my hand. You never needed a family like the Caldwells. No, I agreed, voice steady. We became our own family.